we proudly introduce to you our Tac-Wall product. This functional and decorative wall covering has many great uses and will provide you with many years of great service. This video is to explain in some detail how to install Tac-Wall, but first, we'd like to explain to you a little about how the product is made. Tac-Wall comes from all natural ingredients, such as rosin, wood flour, organic pigments, linseed oil, limestone, cork flour, and jute. These ingredients require a relatively small amount of energy for extraction and are manufactured from almost inexhaustible raw materials. It can be accurately stated that as long as the sun shines and the rain falls, nature will continue to supply the raw materials needed. So let's get started and find out more about what you'll need to know for installing Tac-Wall. It's important that the product is installed carefully and precisely using one of the two following methods. First is the direct scribe method, which works directly on the product using a divider tool along with a hook knife and utility knife. When using this method, it's best to finish it off using a crown molding and a base. The second is the pattern scribe method, using a pre-marked template you create with black roofer's felt or pattern felt. Pattern scribing is recommended when the material has to fit the exact size without the use of a molding or base. Throughout the video, we will make a point to emphasize important details that are critical to the success of your installation by flashing this symbol at the bottom of the screen, along with a line of text emphasizing the topic. The tools needed for the installation will be demonstrated as we go, but here's a quick overview of what you'll need. Tape measure, utility knife, hook knife, metal straight edge, seam cutter, divider tool, injector trowel, wall roller, and seam roller. The recommended adhesive for Tac-Wall installation is L910 adhesive. Other adhesives are not covered by warranty. You'll also want to have enough clean space to roll out the material required for installation for measuring and cutting. If you're installing more than one roll of Tac-Wall, be sure the numbers from each roll are the same lot. Otherwise, the color may not match exactly from one batch to the next. As you're inspecting the Tac-Wall material, no need to panic if you notice a slight yellow discoloration. This is known as drying room film. This is a naturally occurring part of the curing process of the linseed oil. A yellowish film may develop on the surface of the material, distorting the true color beneath it. This film dissipates very quickly with exposure to natural light and reasonably quickly with exposure to artificial light. As you unpack and unroll your material, be sure to pay close attention to any imperfections or damage that may have occurred during shipping. If you have any questions regarding the condition of your material, please contact the place of purchase before proceeding with the installation. When cutting your first piece, you'll want to make a rough cut about 2 to 3 inches longer than needed. This will give you the extra material necessary to cut an exact fit to your wall. Massage out the end curl. Working out the end curls eliminates any cupping which would prevent the Tac-Wall material from firmly gripping the wall. Cutting technique. Once you've taken the measurements, you'll need to be extra careful to perform the cuts with exact precision to ensure proper fit. First, score the material using a utility knife to trace the exact cut. Next, use a hook blade, holding the knife at an angle to slightly undercut the edge. Cut completely through. The hook blade must precisely follow the score line made with the utility knife. Always align arrows on back of material. In order to maintain consistent texture and grain in your material, there are arrows printed on the back of the product every 2 feet. Be sure to inspect and install each sheet of Tac-Wall in the same direction using these arrows. One good point of reference is to use the arrows always pointing to the top or ceiling of your installation. Another way to ensure direction is to mark each cut end with an X and always line up the X's at the top. Do not reverse lay. Keep material clean. Be sure to brush off the jute or burlap side, also known as the adhesive side of the material. This must be done in order to ensure the adhesive sticks to the wall and not to any dirt. Always cut off factory edge. In order to allow for any damage along the edges in transit or handling, we have produced the product wider than the standard 48 inches. To do this precisely, use a seam and strip cutter. To allow for a secure hold on the floor, here we're using a double-sided tape. This gives us the firm grip we need to hold two pieces together while we cut the seam. This is much easier to perform on the floor than on the wall after the piece is installed, and the results are much better. Overlap the seams by at least a ½ inch and measure 2 points to make sure the sheets are even before you cut. Once this has been completed, using the seam and strip cutter, begin to cut your seam. The strip cutter will slightly bevel the edge of the cut to allow the Tac-Wall material to expand slightly to create a tight, firm seam. As you're doing this, the bottom edge of the strip cutter is riding the bottom sheet edge, trace cutting the top sheet edge, ensuring a perfect butt seam. Okay, looking good. We're almost ready for the wall, but wait. Don't move those pieces. We need to create reference marks for aligning the two sheets in order to ensure a perfect fit when we place them on the wall. To accomplish this, we'll use 2-inch wide masking tape and stretch it across the seams, leaving about 2 to 3 inches on both sides. Next, we'll cut the tape along the seam. When we get to the wall hanging stage, we'll use these to align each sheet as it was originally trace cut. When done correctly, the results will be an almost invisible butt seam. We'll cover this again at a later stage. Now, leave the pieces there, and let's go to the wall. Just as important as accurate cutting on the material is thorough preparation of the wall. Remove all dust and dirt from wall. Wiping down the wall is critical to a strong adhesive bond. Any dust or dirt on the wall can cause the adhesive to fail. Thoroughly wipe the entire surface with a damp rag. However, be sure the surface has dried before you apply the adhesive. Depending on the type of wall you're applying Tac-Wall to will determine the way you prepare it. For painted surfaces, you must first sand the wall, creating a slight tooth for the adhesive to bond to. Using a fine grit sandpaper for this is sufficient. For bare sheetrock, you prepare as you would for painting. Be sure the wall is smooth and even and free of any bumps or dents. Porous surfaces must be primed before applying the adhesive. This will allow the adhesive to set properly and not be absorbed into the surface. Remove any existing wall covering and sand off any adhesive residue. If you're unsure if the Tac-Wall will bond correctly to the wall, try a small bond test in an inconspicuous area. Use a plumb line to hang the first sheet.